What is happening? Welcome in to 104.5 The Zone, live from Baltimore, Maryland, downtown Baltimore, Maryland. To be exact, Buck Rising hanging out with you here until 1 o'clock. It's game day, kids, and we are in Charm City for the Titans and the Ravens. Preseason number 1 taking place at M&T Bank Stadium tonight, 6:30 Central Time, local kickoff. Coverage, of course, starting on Titans Radio at 5:30 Central Time. We're happy to have you guys here. Lucas is back in the studio. I have been in Baltimore for probably about 6 hours now after having a flight that was scheduled for 5 p.m. yesterday, but it's fine. Everything is fine. We're going to have a great time. We're basically doing 3 hours of pregame. We're talking all kinds of position battles. So, of course, today you're going to hear from Mike Vrabel, Ryan Tannehill, Malik, where you're going to hear audio on Malik Willis and kind of things that we're keeping an eye on, competition battles, and all of the different things that I know you guys are jonesing for to get started with your football season. But I feel we have to start in the obvious place. I feel that I need to quickly admonish Lucas Panzica for what he did to me yesterday. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Want to set the scene? You want me to do it? Because I'm giving you the opportunity to present things to people the way that you would like them to before I completely take you out of context and then rip you.
No, I think we just played the audio from yesterday.
What did you think? Do you think I'm going to make my flight? Do you think my flight's going to have? Do you think I can get through this first one without any issues? I'm not confident.
You'll probably be okay. It's a Wednesday.
I don't know.
I could fight you.
Oh, narrator, it wasn't okay.
I could fight you. 7 hours of delays later from the time that I was supposed to get on this godforsaken Southwest flight to BWI. I'm telling you, Lucas. So I had my whole afternoon planned out. I was ready. And listen, I haven't flown. I think I've been on one plane since, what would that have been? Mobile, Senior Bowl, back in early February, the last time that I've been on a flight. And so I haven't experienced all of these different miserable travel delays that everybody else has all summer. I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't wanted to go anywhere. In fact, summer vacation for me is not physically getting on a plane because I spend my entire fall and winter doing so. So I haven't had this happen to me yet. But I planned everything out. I was ready to go. Did the install podcast at like 3:25. We wrapped up yesterday. I'm like, okay, I got plenty of time. Got my TSA pre-check. I'm going to call my Uber as Greg's wrapping up his last answer on Rashad Bateman, who we may see tonight playing against the Titans in some form or fashion. And I'm like, all right, we're going to be good. So I get my Uber. Uber picks me up, getting ready to take me to the airport. We're coming from downtown Nashville, where I live, and we're getting ready to cross the Jefferson Street Bridge to get on the highway and to go out on, 40 East. And as soon as we cross the Jefferson Street Bridge, Lucas, I get a text from Southwest saying, your flight has been delayed. Please check the Southwest app for more information. I said, okay, check the Southwest app. I'm prepared for this mentally. I've come to terms with the idea that my travel is going to be disjointed in some form or fashion. All right, it's okay. And then I look at what my phone says, and it says that my flight at 5 o'clock has been delayed to 9:30. And I looked at the Uber driver. I said, sir, can you just turn around and take me home? I don't want to sit at the airport for 4 hours. At that point, 6 hours ahead of when my flight was then scheduled to leave. My flight didn't leave Nashville until 12:17 a.m. this morning. I got to Baltimore. I got to my hotel in downtown Baltimore from BWI about 3:45 a.m. Eastern time. I am not a happy camper today, and I am entirely putting it at your feet. Look at you cheesing back there. Mother bleeper. I could choke.
This is a product of, remember at training camp, how I remarked multiple times that, God, the weather has been fantastic in the mornings. Like, we just haven't had a single day of just sweltering heat with the sun beating down on us from start to finish. And you and Teresa and several others quickly admonished me, saying, don't you dare say that. but it never really panned out. I was right the whole time. We've really had great weather throughout training camp. I think the superstitious gods, whoever is in control of that, were waiting to lay down the hammer for your flight to Baltimore.
I'm glad it came at zero expense to you whatsoever. I'm very happy.
That's the best part. There is nothing worse than that. Like that is top 5 worst things to happen to you on a day-to-day basis.
Put it on the poll at Buck Rising, where we will update the polls. We have all manner of Titans polls available for you to vote on, and we will conclude that at the end of the show today. But is there anything more defeating than having flight cancellations? At Buck Rising on the poll, no or no should be the answers. There is no option for yes. I believe that flights getting canceled and delayed, especially once you're already at the airport. Like if I had been at the airport already, I may have considered not coming to Baltimore. It'll just take me home. I don't want to go. Hell, there's about I was texting some people with the team last night because apparently they had issues getting into Baltimore, because not only did we have storms in Middle Tennessee, but there were significant thunderstorms in Baltimore, which caused delays on both ends. So apparently the team had about a 3-hour delay on the tarmac before they were able to get here last night. And, you know, there's anywhere from, based on my understanding, between 20 and 30 players who just straight up didn't travel. They just left a third of the roster at home. So I'm looking around sitting there, how bad do I really want it? How bad do I really, really want to be here to watch Ryan Stonehouse play the second half of the punter competition? Does this mean enough to me? And the answer is yes, damn it, because otherwise, what other use do I have? What other use do I provide?
Zach says, you're looking rough, Buck. JTB says, Lucas, he should be playing sad violin music every time he talks about his flight.
I'm not going to, no. This is the last time I'm going to talk about the flight. I wanted it off the top because we're going to have a good show. We're going to do pregame stuff. We're going to, celebrate, get drunk and naked in the streets because it's football season, baby. It's back. The wait is over. Everybody celebrate. The complaints off the top, and then we move on with your regularly scheduled, Malik Willis, Logan Woodside programming. But Ryan Tannehill sure as hell is in Baltimore, and I bet he's glad that he isn't. 615-737-1045. Jump in on the conversation if you would like to join us. All throughout the course of the show. What are you most excited to see tonight? Real simple. There's a lot of different things that are going to be presented to you, many of you, the vast majority of you, for the first time. You're going to have the opportunity to see Malik Willis in extended work and live game reps as a professional quarterback. That's not something that we have seen outside of training camp practices and, obviously people not getting within 6 to 10 feet of the quarterback. All these different things that we have talked about with Malik Willis throughout the course of the offseason and preseason. How much progress has he made? All the new offensive skill position players, where you're looking at tight ends, wide receivers, some running backs that are going to play in the absence of Derrick Henry. Was that my email or your email that just dinged in my ear?
Nope, that was you. Oh, that was me sending you an email, though.
Oh.
Turn your notifications off.
I don't know how to do that. So, again, Lucas Panzica actively working to the detriment of the show. I think it'd be just, I'm already pissy today, clearly. And, that ends up being better radio for us for some reason. It's not great for my health, mental, physical, or otherwise. But I think it just at random points, you should see how much you can irritate me by randomly sending me emails.
Speaking of your health, have you weighed yourself today?
I have. I went to the on my way down to look at the sad, complimentary breakfast that typically comes in these hotels. I bypassed it. I said, no, I'm going to stick with this. We've been talking about 220 by training camp, 220 by Baltimore, baby. We are 217.3 as of this morning. Not to get self-congratulatory, but I'm very happy. And, despite everything else, I feel fantastic. So we have accomplished our goal. Now we must set a new one. 200 by Super Bowl, Lucas. 200 by Super Bowl. That is the objective at this point.
Congratulations. Proud of you.
Oh, I appreciate that. And you've shown your pride in me by taking videos of me jogging unceremoniously on the practice field with which to shame me on the internet for your own file. I'm very glad that we could get you the payoff that you desire. But we'll be talking about all kinds of different competitions on the roster today. Specifically, what Titans did not make the trip? Who do I not expect to see as of this morning? As more information becomes available, we will update you with that. Like I said, there's about between 20 and 30 players that did not make the trip to Baltimore. The vast majority of Titans starters I would not expect to see. Now, there are several who are here and who will compete against the Ravens' second and third teams tonight, because the expectation is that we will not see Lamar Jackson either, not just because head coaches don't want to play their starting quarterbacks in the preseason, because some teams are, but also mainly because Lamar is currently in a contract negotiation, and any opportunity for him to get injured before he gets paid, that is not the situation. That is not a situation that Baltimore or Lamar wants to be in. So we'll talk about who has not traveled for the Titans, who will play in tonight's preseason game. We're also going to take a look around the league because there's a lot of interesting names, specifically in new places with all the offseason change and turnover, personnel-wise, quarterbacks specifically. A lot of these guys are expected to play in their first preseason action, which begins first tonight with the Giants and the Patriots at, 6 p.m. Central Time.
Yep.
And then the Titans and the Ravens at 6:30. That is on WKRN News 2 with our friends Corey Curtis and Charles Davis and Dan Helly on the call. And then, of course, Titans Radio, Mac, Mike, Amy, Rhett, Jimmy, Wyatt. We're all here in attendance, and we will have coverage for you right here on your flagship home for Titans football, 104.5 The Zone. So we've got some news, Lucas tells me. We'll get to that coming up next, and we will also talk about the players who we're most excited across the league to see in the preseason in their first snaps, many of them with new teams. Live from Baltimore on this game day, I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Football. Football.
Football.
Football.
Football.
Football.
Football.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Oh, that's right. Football, baby. That audio courtesy of the Dan Levitard Show with Stugotz. Football. Do we want to do it? I don't know if it'll sound probably terrible on Zoom. I don't know that we should engage in those things when I'm not in studio. The way that we think it would sound great on here, and then it sounds like a garbled wreck coming out on people's FM radio.
Yeah, let's maybe we'll kick that can.
Football. I love it. It makes me so happy. That's right. Football. It's back officially. Welcome back in to 104.5 The Zone. We're live. Well, I'm live from Baltimore today. Titans and Ravens later on this evening from M&T Bank Stadium. Preseason game number 1. So what are you looking for? Who are you excited to watch? Spencer has tweeted us and said that may have been the most annoying thing I've ever heard. Good.
Spencer must hate fun.
There's a balance with sports fans. Right?
Dawn didn't like it either. She just texted us.
Well, and what Dawn said I can't say on FCC radio. She said that audio was annoying as bleep. And I love football. Yes, I don't. Okay, so here's the thing. All right, because we got two contingents of the population. We got people who love football but don't want the circus and the silliness around the football. Like the audio that I would like to play it again, Lucas. Can I hear the Dan Levitard Show with Stugotz audio again, screaming from the rafters, football, because it's officially back? I feel like for people like Dawn and like Spencer and whomever else that we annoyed by playing this, I feel that they need to kind of embrace the spirit, at least that we have for these 3 hours. Start the chorus if you would.
Football.
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 I love it so much.
Sunset Chaser 614 says, "What God's name was that?"
I love it so much.
It was football. It is football. You got two different kinds of football fans, right? I feel like we run up against this all the time because you know how I feel about sports. Like we work in a playground basically, and I'm not going to treat it with any kind of seriousness because it's silly that anybody would take this thing legitimately seriously. And then you have people who really, really, really take football seriously, and they don't want to have a good time the way that I do with the football symphony that we just played for you. Dawn says, "I hate y'all." You can either be Dawn or you can be us. And I think for the purposes of enjoyment, I think you'd rather be us on a day like today. But maybe we got biases, but I just think it's a good time. Somebody tweets us, "Not only did we get hit with it once, we have to be tortured with it twice." Thanks, guys. I think I'm going to do it several times today. I think you have that at the ready. I think you have that on every game day broadcast that we do. I absolutely want to have the football symphony at the ready to drive people crazy that way. Stoney Keeley just tweeted us and said, "My cat's face when Buck Rising plays that droning football audio clip." Yes, embrace it. It's football season, baby. We're back. Game day here in Charm City. So who's here? Who's here? I'm here. But who is here and who is not here? Who is not participating in this game? Lucas, if I gave you a top 3 players who you would not want to see play in preseason game number 1 that are currently on the Titans roster among the starters, which 3 players would you select?
I would select Derrick Henry. I would select Jeffrey Simmons. I think there's absolutely no reason for Big Jeff to play in the preseason, and I would select Kevin Byard.
I don't know if KB's here. That's a good question. Because he did play a little bit in the preseason, and he has played a little bit in the preseason over the course of his career. Ryan Tannehill, not here. Jeffrey Simmons, not here. Derrick Henry, not here. Now, in certain cases, I kind of opened the show with this. There are about 20, 30 players that didn't travel. Now, I think some of that's for practicality purposes because the locker rooms at these NFL stadiums, especially the visiting locker rooms at NFL stadiums, they are not equipped to handle 90 players. Like it's unreasonable that would be something that you would try and do. So I think when you look at okay, for practicality purposes, it makes a lot of sense not to take the vast majority of the starters because we're not going to play them anyway. And that's how it goes. So in looking at who is in Baltimore, Caleb Farley is here. Christian Fulton is here. Dylan Radins and Nicholas Petit Frere have made the trip. So at the places where the competition is most evident for a roster spot, or rather not for a roster spot, but for a starting role, that's the kind of thing. That we're going to be watching in more detail tonight. Now, a player that I'm curious to know about, but that I haven't been able to figure out whether he's here or not, is Roger McCreary. Because if you'll recall, Roger McCreary, who's had such a fun and successful training camp by any stretch of the imagination, Roger McCreary did not participate in Monday's practice. He was doing a little bit of conditioning work, but beyond that, I didn't see if there was an injury that occurred. But I don't know if Roger McCreary is here or not. But I would say that even if McCreary is here, I would say that Caleb Farley needs to play on the outside as much as humanly possible just to get him live game reps in all three of these preseason games. We'll spend some more time on why I think it's important for him to play a substantial amount later on in the show. And we'll also get your opinions, your perspectives on who you want to see play in the preseason tonight. 615-737-1045 is the number. Now, what does Charlie and Franklin want to do? Do you want to tell us who he wants to watch in the preseason? Wants to yell at us about the football season?
I never know.
All right, let's find out together. Charlie and Franklin, good morning, my friend.
Yeah, good morning. First of all, I tell you how great y'all's show is. It is just absolutely off the wall. That's how good it is. But my main point was holler, football, football, football. Now that's for Dawn.
That's not our Charlie and Franklin, but another Charlie and Franklin, a Charlie and Franklin who is more aligned with the show sensibilities than I appreciate.
Thank you, Charlie.
How many times do you think I can play? Because you're the one who has to hit the button. You're the one who's going to be more directly responsible for annoying people today than I am, even if I'm the one who's gratuitously calling for that audio. How many times do you think I can get away with playing that throughout the course of a 3-hour show?
I don't want to overkill it quite yet. I mean, we've got checks notes 20 games still to go.
No, I disagree. I want to run it into the ground. I want to run it into the ground, and I want it to ring in Dawn Davenport's ears by the time she comes on for 3HL at 3 o'clock from 3 to 5:30 today. This Titans radio coverage will take over. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. So, Lucas, you're doing Titans radio scoreboard tonight. Back in the saddle. You excited?
I am excited. I cannot believe that it's already here. The offseason flew by.
Yeah, well, they get shorter and shorter the more seasons that you cover the NFL, let me assure you. But for the purposes of looking at what's happening around the league, and we'll get into more detail about the Titans throughout the course of today's show. Obviously, you'll hear from Mike Grable on Malik Willis. How much are he and Logan Woodside going to split snaps tonight? We touched on Caleb Farley and the skill position players, the many, many new skill position players, including Traylon Burks, who is in Baltimore. He did make the trip. He is not among the between 20 and 30 players that did not travel today. So I would expect to see the first-round pick in some capacity tonight. But there will be time for that. In the meantime, I've been surprised by how many NFL teams are actually playing starters in the preseason. And I guess it's always been more that anyway. And as we've evolved and coaches have gotten smarter and more judicious about, all right, how can we protect the bodies longer? Now we're playing 17 regular season games. It's still 20 total between 3 preseason and 17 regular, 4 preseason and 16 regular. So it's still a 20-game sample size. The coaches are trying to protect the bodies against on the roster. But Matt Ryan is going to play substantial snaps, it seems, in the first Colts preseason game. That's wild to me.
Yeah,
given that
reportedly a quarter.
Yeah, I would not put him out. I would not put Matt Ryan out at 37 years old with significant questions around who is protecting that quarterback, because their left tackle situation is kind of a bleep show. Deshaun Watson, and speaking of guys who I wouldn't put out on the field, who the league doesn't seem to want to put out on the field, Deshaun Watson is going to play, and the Browns are saying double middle fingers to Roger Goodell. He's cleared, and he can be available. What'd you say?
Well, quick thing on that. I was talking to J. Martin Ramon about that during a break this morning, and I think that there's a general feeling that the NFL could come down with their appeal and potentially levy a season-long suspension before the weekend, before Saturday when the Browns play that game. If Watson is suspended for the entirety of the season, he can't take any preseason snaps. He can't be with the team throughout training camp before the start of the regular season.
That is a significant detail, because, of course, that would derail very much of what the Browns are. I don't want to say they're trying to skirt, but they're trying to take advantage of things that are falling in their favor from a football standpoint. We played you the audio yesterday, I believe it was, of Roger Goodell saying why they had appealed the Watson 6-game suspension. They felt it to be inadequate, and Roger Goodell used the words predatory. And instead of keeping him off to the field for longer than 6 games, we could well see him this weekend if this situation is not resolved before the Browns take the field against their first preseason opponent, which is whom, Lucas?
The Browns? Let me
Yes.
double check.
That's fine. It doesn't much matter, because the conversation is going to revolve around Deshaun Watson.
Well, they're playing. Actually, they play the Jags, so you're going to have Trevor Lawrence playing in that game. We know he's starting. We know Travis Etienne is starting.
Who are you most excited? So, Watson is a curiosity for a variety of different reasons, football notwithstanding, because we haven't seen him play football in a year by his own choice. It was his choice not to play last year for the Texans, not the league's, not the Texans. You have a situation where Trevor Lawrence is going to, with a new coaching staff, make his preseason or his second year preseason debut, and Travis Etienne, who, if memory serves, we didn't see it all during the regular season. He got hurt before the preseason games even began. So this will be our first opportunity to see the second of the 2 first-round picks that Jacksonville had in that draft, and what the Titans may be facing twice a year. Give you a good kind of measure of that. We know that Mac Jones is not going to play for the Patriots, but it sounds like the Giants' starting defense and starting offense are going to take preseason snaps under Brian Daboll. That'll be the first preseason game today. Mike Miracle sent me a really good one. But before I give you that, I am curious to know, is there a player around the league who, in a new spot, Matt Ryan, as we talked about, Deshaun Watson, as we mentioned, there's going to be several others, Carson Wentz for the Washington football skins team, racial slurs, whatever you want to call the Washington football franchise at this point. Carson Wentz in a new situation, and not promising reports out of their training camp so far about his competency level. By the way, the Titans will play Carson Wentz again later this season at FedEx Field. Hopefully there's less raw sewage than the last time I saw pictures of FedEx Field. But anyway, as far as players who are in new spots, who most intrigues you?
For me, it's Matt Ryan, just because I'm fascinated at the fact that they're playing him. A guy as an aging quarterback. I can't remember if Phillip Rivers played any preseason snaps when he joined the Indianapolis Colts, but that's the one that I had to kind of do a double take when I saw not only Matt Ryan could be getting preseason snaps, but that he could be playing a full quarter of preseason snaps. I don't know. I mean, the risk reward there is a little bit too much for me. If I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan, I don't know. I mean, it's obviously completely new weapons around him, and it's tough. For me, it's Matt Ryan. I'm interested to watch Matt Ryan in that offense for the first time, but I don't know about playing him for a full quarter.
Yeah, and it's not even you're watching him in that offense, right? You're watching him in a preseason super sanitized offense. Now it's Matt Ryan in a Colts uniform taking snaps for a different team. And, in retrospect, you also have Marcus Mariota, who is going to he's expected to play and to start for the Atlanta Falcons in his new home as the replacement, the successor for Matt Ryan. Sounds like the Lions are going to play their starters. The Hard Knocks favorites. Did you watch Hard Knocks?
I haven't watched Hard Knocks since the Raiders with Antonio Brown and that whole thing.
Yeah, Browns in 2018 was the last time I took time out of my day to watch Hard Knocks. But apparently Dan Campbell and Aiden Hutchinson are going to give us reasons to seek it out on HBO. We'll see how it goes along. The Cardinals not starting Kyler Murray. Colt McCoy not expected to play as the backup either. You've got oh my God, that means Garrett Daniels going to play.
A lot of snaps for JG this weekend.
You think there is a contingent of Vols fans who will hate watch Jerry? I feel bad for Jake. I do, because he still gets so much hate. So much hate. And, hate I don't think is necessarily deserved because he wasn't the best football player here, but I think that Vols Twitter is going to be awoken when JG trots out on the field in a Cardinals uniform, much to their chagrin to discover that JG is in a professional football training camp or playing professional football in the preseason for an NFL team. That, I think, is going to catch a lot of people by surprise. But good for JG, honestly. And, preseason, we're going to talk about a lot of different things today, and I've got all kinds of notes on what I'm watching and what I've seen from practice and how it translates, and we'll certainly diagnose it tomorrow after, hopefully, I get back to Nashville on time after a nightmare situation getting here to Baltimore. But preseason is not important for you. Really, not important. It's not important for me. Really not that important for me, other than it gives me something to talk about for 3 hours on the radio before and after. It's not important for people who study film with great importance because there's not schemes being done outside of, the Ravens and Falcons, ironically enough, under Dean Pease. They like to blitz, so you can see how quarterbacks respond to additional pressure where other teams may not even go as far as to blitz. Preseason is not important for the vast majority of us. Who it is critically important for is all these dudes, Jarrett Garantano, Kenneth George is no longer here in Tennessee, but let's say Mason Kinsey, for as much conversation or lack of conversation as I've wanted to have about somebody like Mason Kinsey getting legitimate snaps. This is how you continue to prolong your NFL career. You can put enough good tape out there or put enough good effort out there to make a practice squad and continue to keep this dream for a lot of people afloat and do it in a substantial way because you're going to take advantage of every opportunity that you get to be an NFL football player. That's really cool for the fringe roster guys, for guys who are looking to kind of earn a larger role or for us as far as rookies are concerned, yeah, you want to see how these guys look in the first live game action ahead of the regular season, but it doesn't actually matter of great consequence unless somebody gets hurt. But for these guys, I think it's important to remember who it's actually important for. So when, we get a quarter of the way through this thing tonight and people are already bitching about how bad the preseason football is, remember that it's not for you. It's not for me. I'll try to remember this too as I sit in the press box at M&T Bank Stadium. It's not for us. It's for them out on the field this time of year in particular. Lucas, we have news?
Yeah, slight news nugget in the NFL as Patriots running back James White announces his retirement today. Field Yates putting this stat out there. He's the author of the only walk-off touchdown in Super Bowl history in that Super Bowl against the Falcons, coming back down 28-3. Played for 8 seasons, never lost a fumble. James White retires.
Did I say Vols Twitter? V-Love just texted me that I said Vols Twitter. I thought I said Vols Twitter. Maybe my Vols or my Vols sound like Vols.
I did not notice it, but V-Love listens intently, so I appreciate him keeping us accountable.
He can't harass us on Twitter because he's currently banished. Instead, he's got to take the direct line to me. Apparently, I committed. Who was the CBS caster last year who said Vols and everybody freaked out? He was on a Tennessee game. I can't remember. It wasn't Dana. And God bless. Who's the other guy? Brad Nessler.
No, Brad Nessler's done enough Tennessee games.
No. Anyway, it doesn't. We will talk about competitions that we are looking forward to tonight. We'll continue to take your calls throughout the course of the day, 615-737-1045. Specifically, let's hone in on the offensive line. You're going to hear from offensive line coach Keith Carter about the competition at right tackle coming up next. Welcome back, live from Baltimore. Buck Rising here with you in the Inner Harbor, where we broadcast live from today. Happy to have you guys in and hope that you're as excited as we are to be covering an NFL football game tonight in some form or fashion. 615-737-1045. You can jump in if you like. We had some two bits of news here before we talk about this offensive line competition that you're going to hear from Keith Carter on. First and foremost, in a larger AFC picture type of deal, Mike Tomlin has announced that Mitch Trubisky will start their first preseason game. So it would seem that the veteran, where they have Kenny Pickett and also Mason Rudolph, who has institutional knowledge that may give him, or apparently not give him, a leg up. Mitch Trubisky looks like he is in the best position to start the regular season for the Pittsburgh Steelers, something to keep an eye on.
Against the Seahawks, who are also in a quarterback battle.
Well, maybe whomever loses well, I guess they'll keep Pickett and Trubisky no matter what. But, maybe somebody else will end up in Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle's is a QB battle of a much lesser degree.
Just nauseating, what I consider the Seahawks quarterback situation to be, respectfully, to Drew Lock and Geno Smith. There is a Tom Brady situation. Now, the details of which I'm not clear on, because apparently he had an excused absence from practice for the Bucs yesterday. He again was excused from practice today, and Todd Bowles told reporters that he was going to provide an update after their practice concludes. So I'm seeing the reports from Bucs media right now. Todd Bowles said Tom Brady won't be back with the Bucs until after the Titans preseason game on August the 20th. He's taking a week and a half off, which means inherently that Tom Brady will not be here for joint training camp practices against the Tennessee Titans. Now, that may not matter consequentially, just other than, some of you who are going to be able to attend training camp practices, having Tom Brady out there is a big deal. It was in 2019 when the Patriots were here with Brady. It was a big deal last year when we all traveled down to Tampa Bay to have joint training camp practices with the Bucs. But what it does matter for is now some of the players that you would have liked to have seen get reps against Tom Brady in those practices, who will not, who may not play against the preseason or may not play in the preseason, or certainly Brady has played in the preseason under Bruce Arians. I don't know if that's going to continue to be a thing.
Yeah, Bruce Arians loved playing starters in the preseason,
which I'm sure Tom Brady did not. So much so to the point where he's just like, yeah, now that Bruce is gone, I take a week and a half off. Hopefully everything's okay in Tom's life. But yeah, so Tom Brady, it doesn't sound like, is going to be here for joint training camp practice, or will not be here for joint training camp practices. I think that's unfortunate for Titans defensive backs, who I think could get really good reps against a hugely talented skill position group, important, meaningful reps that would rival anything else that you would get other than an actual regular season game against Tampa Bay. But I do think that matters for guys like Caleb Farley, Roger McCreary. I think it's good for Kevin Byard and Amani Hooker to help them stay sharp. You're playing guys like Mike Evans and Russell Gage, as we talked about. Chris Godwin still there, although I know he had a little bit of an early derailment in training camp as far as an injury situation was concerned.
You're forgetting one.
Who am I forgetting?
Julio.
How happy are you that you got to use that there?
Been too long.
Hey, yeah, I kept having people send me. I guess the Bucs put out a highlight of Brady throwing a Julio yesterday, which it's got to be so uncomfy for Falcons fans to see Julio Jones in a Buccaneers uniform. Like that has to be the most bizarre feeling. But that would be like watching Jarrell Casey go play for the Colts after the Titans. It's an odd thing. But I had a lot of people sending me the practice highlight that they put out there. Julio making a diving catch into the end zone. Good coverage, looked explosive, Julio, and that may be the last time that we see Julio do anything until week 15 against the New Orleans. I don't know who the week 15 is, but in a moment where they need Julio Jones to do something, you throw him out there. All of a sudden, you're paying attention to Mike Evans, Russell Gage, and Chris Godwin, and there's Julio wearing, oddly enough, number 85, just lurking in the back of the end zone to catch a pop pass from Tom, the way that Gronk used to. That's the kind of stuff that I'm expecting. But getting back into the conversation around offensive line, because we'll see our first true measure of where these guys are at tonight. Again, schematics offensively, not super complex. Run left, run right, pass middle, outbreaking route, whatever the case may be. Nothing crazy. But what I think is that that the situation for the offensive line, specifically the right tackle spot, because I think we all are in a place where Aaron Brewer is the left guard. I think the coaching staff feels comfortable in that decision, even though they haven't officially made it official. I think that the players who have familiarity with Brewer feel good about him being there. I have told you my concerns about Aaron Brewer, just generally. I love his effort, love his energy. He is a very, very physical player, but he's just small, and there's anything that you can do about that. So looking at the right tackle situation, first we asked Keith Carter, the offensive line coach, I believe this was 2 weeks ago, about where Nicholas Petit-Frere is in his development right now. Because remember, he's most recently been getting starting right tackle snaps with Dylan Radins. This was Keith Carter last week.
I think, definite improvement from the first practice. And he's still working it, and we're kind of still in this little bit of an up and down trajectory with his hands. But overall, we're moving in the right direction, and he's getting more comfortable.
What kind of disadvantages are there for a guy like that when he's kind of wavering a little bit with his hand placement? So.
Well, yeah, I just think it's pass rushers in this league are so good. If you don't make first meaningful contact and at least affect their feet, maybe stop them, restart them, slow them down, or change their original rush plan, it's a long day. So, and that's why hands are so important when we're talking about drop back protection.
So that's Keith Carter talking about the things that we all knew about Nicholas Petit-Frere coming out of college. 5-star prospect being recruited at Ohio State, athletically gifted, has the size, speed, and talent to be able to be a premium player at that position in the league. But there are technical things that caused him to fall in the draft process and end up being a third-round pick. There were defenses in the Big Ten last year that took advantage of it, so much so that there is versatility to Petit-Frere in the way that you can switch sides with him from right to left or left to right. But it was happening in games where he was failing at one spot and they had to move him to the other spot to continue to try and keep C.J. Stroud upright. Now, I would say to you that if given the choice between the two players, if you were to ask me who is the Titans starting right tackle at year's end, even though it's only training camp so far, I would tell you that I would think Nicholas Petit-Frere is going to be that player. But in listening to Keith Carter talk about Dylan Radins, it does seem like they are pleased with the progress that the former second-round pick out of North Dakota State is making.
He's doing a good job, and he's definitely made really good strides. He's still, like we all are, work in progress, but his sets are getting better, his feet are getting better, his hands are getting better, and I think, we're still working the top of the pocket and some things there, but overall, I think he's on the right track too.
You expect to put him and Jamarco, you expect to put Nicholas and Jamarco in with the ones at some point, or how's this thing going to unfold?
Yeah, I think, that's a good question. I think, we are still we are still competing. So there's going to be opportunities, obviously preseason games start next week and stuff like that, where we're expecting to see guys make some strides and really solidify some jobs. So nothing's off the table.
That's Keith Carter. Sounds like the job's very much open for Petit-Frere to take advantage of it if he can correct these things that coaching is designed to correct, right? It's hand placement, it's technique. Everything else about Nicholas Petit-Frere would be, I think, considered superior if you would see the two players on the field doing the same blocking assignments or pass pro or whatever the case may be, even though Radins has done very, very well physically to get him up to NFL shape and speed. I think that you have a true and honest right tackle competition. I don't think that anything has been decided there just yet. And we'll see some of that start to materialize tonight. But speaking of Petit Frere, let's talk about which Titans rookie you're most excited to see when the Titans play the Ravens, 6:30 p.m. Central Time kickoff here as I broadcast live in Baltimore. 615-737-1045. You let us know who you're looking for, and we'll tell you which rookies we're watching coming up next.
It is 11:03. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica, and welcome to Game Day. The Titans play the first preseason game of 2022 at the Baltimore Ravens tonight. Titans countdown starting at 5:30 right here on The Zone before a 6:30 kickoff with Mike Keith, Coach Mack, and the rest of the Titans radio crew. Only one other preseason game taking place tonight, Giants and Patriots at 6 p.m. The Giants expected to play several starters, according to head coach Brian Daboll. Speaking of the Patriots, longtime Patriots running back James White announced his retirement earlier today. And Bucs head coach Todd Bowles, speaking to reporters, stated that quarterback Tom Brady will be away from the team dealing with a personal matter until after their August 20th preseason game against the Tennessee Titans, meaning Tom Brady will not be present for Titans and Bucs joint practices next week. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What is happening? Second down, live from Baltimore, Maryland, downtown Baltimore, Maryland, to be exact, here on 104.5 The Zone. Buck Rising here with you on assignment, as Don Davenport would say, for coverage of Titans and Ravens coming your way, 6:30 p.m. Central Time tonight. We got Lucas back in the studio. We're happy to have you guys as a part of the show today. Happy to have you on this game day. I know you're as excited as we are. If you want to jump in, you can do that. 615-737-1045 is our number here. 615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation. There is a lot of stuff that we are going to be consuming on the field tonight. We are going to be looking at right tackle position battles, as you just heard Keith Carter discuss. We are going to be looking at things that you may not necessarily consider, but are of critical importance to your football team. For example, the punting situation. Brett Kern's roster spot is not a guaranteed thing. Ryan Stonehouse, who the team likes as an undrafted rookie free agent, and frankly, a far more cost-effective option at a position where, you try to pinch pennies at if you can. Brett Kern and Ryan Stonehouse, how their snaps are split this evening, I think will be very, very telling. I think it's likely that Brett ends up keeping his job, but there is no guarantee, as there would be in literally any other season. Quarterbacks, who is going to start the game? How many reps are each of them going to get? Remember that Ryan Tannehill is not present. We have Malik Willis and Logan Woodside, not necessarily, well, in fact, not at all in that. Logan Woodside and Malik Willis in some form or fashion. How much will they participate this evening? And players from 2021, the 2021 draft class, some of these guys who need to knock some rust off after missing significant time due to injuries. Those will be discussed and dissected with great importance throughout the course of this evening and into tomorrow. As far as rookies, though, who are you most excited to watch? 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Which Titans rookie from this 2022 class? I think there's 8 selections total. I believe 5 or 6 of them were all on offense. Chance Campbell, Theo Jackson. Who am I missing as far as defensive players? It may have just been those two. But still, a lot of rookies taking place or taking part in tonight's game. And I think there are a variety of them who I'm excited to watch. But let's narrow it down a little bit. I asked Lucas to have a player who he was excited to watch. And I'm going to give you mine here in just a second. You're welcome to jump in on the conversation as you like. Lucas, who are you most excited to watch in the preseason? You've been in at camp with me every day but on the weekends, right? So probably what are we talking about? 7 of the 10 open to media training camp practices. You've seen all these rookies participate in some form or fashion. You've been able to talk to some of them as a product of them sitting down with us on the radio show as we broadcast live from camp throughout the course of the off season or preseason rather. But who are you most excited to watch tonight?
For me, it's Kyle Phillips, who we've seen sort of gradually position himself into a spot where he's working with the ones during team drills and camp, getting more and more reps with Ryan Tannehill, lining up in individual drills and calling out Kevin Byard. That's the guy that he wants to go up against for that particular rep. And then you continue to hear glowing reviews about Kyle Phillips. Mike Vrabel's been complimentary of him. Ryan Tannehill, Kevin Byard have talked about him in a good light. And also because I feel like we know, or we think we know, exactly what his role is going to be with this team this year. Like, we think we know that Kyle Phillips will have that Adam Humphries type of role, like Mike Giardi said, that they never really got consistently from Adam Humphries. So I want to see that play out. I want to see that in action and in the punt return game. Now, I don't know, and I wonder what you would think about if Kyle Phillips would be returning punts today in this preseason game or at any point in the preseason. But there's a couple of different aspects of his game that we really think he's going to have a big impact in this season for the Titans out of the slot as kind of a safety blanket for Ryan Tannehill, as a route technician, running yards after catch with the ball in his hands, and as a punt returner. So knowing all of that, what we think we know about his role with this team, I want to see it in action. But I am curious if he is going to get some of those punt return reps today.
He is. He is. He's gonna return some kicks, or rather return some punts today. I think that as you look at and early going so far, but I would look at Dontrell Hilliard as your front runner for the kick return job, and I would look at Kyle Phillips as the lead player for the punt returning duties. Now, your point about the kind of praise he's been earning, because it's about how many different things that you can do. I've said that I think they're going to end up keeping, because of by nature of 3 quarterbacks in all likelihood on the active roster when they cut down to 53. I think they're probably going to end up with, provided that health allows them to do this, 5 wide receivers on the active roster, several more on the practice squad in some form or fashion. They can't keep everybody. But I think Phillips has earned his spot on this roster by nature of the punt return ability and by the fact that people like Ryan Tannehill can't stop talking about how much Kyle Phillips has done to show him that he is going to be a reliable option, that the quarterback can trust him, which is what Tannehill spoke to on Monday.
Oh, it's huge. When you see a guy, bounce back after a misstep, and be able to handle that and move on and then make the play for you, it's huge. He made another play for me in this 2-minute today. Braves get us the phantom holding call, but he was able to make a play, tight coverage, rip the ball in there. He was able to go up and make a big play for me. So, the more a guy makes plays like that and is able to, make contested catches and get himself open, and if he's not a clean win, I'm able to throw it to him in a spot where he goes and makes the play. It builds a lot of confidence from my seat in being able to throw him the ball.
And we've seen moments like that. There's been a couple in particular that Kyle Phillips has really impressed. But I don't know if there's been any more impressive portion outside of the obvious athletic gifts that an NFL wide receiver would have. And Kyle Phillips, a 5th round pick out of UCLA this year. Outside of what he brings to the table as an athlete, it's the fact that he is not going to allow himself to be excluded from gaining the quarterback's trust. It can be very easy to get lost in the shuffle, especially at this time of year, especially if you're a new guy coming in. But what you need to show the coaching staff and by extension the quarterback is if, say, you miscommunicate on a rep, you run the wrong route, Ryan Tannehill pulls a Dez Fitzpatrick and throws an interception because you ran the wrong route. Well, what's going to happen in that instance? Quarterback's not going to go back your way. He's not going to look at you nearly as often, and his trust in you is going to be diminished because if you can't be relied upon to do your job, how can Ryan Tannehill rely upon you to put him in positions to succeed? I've heard Ryan Tannehill talk more in training camp this year about guys making plays for him. You notice that? Guys making plays for him within the offense more than at any other point in my time covering him as a Tennessee Titan. He's kind of emphasized that, Kyle Phillips went out and made a play for me here. Traylon Burks, the more that he can do that, the more that he can make plays for me in that way, the more opportunities that I'll have, or the more comfortable I'll be with looking his way, making plays for him, ownership of the offense, which is not necessarily something that Ryan Tannehill didn't have before, but I think there's a bigger emphasis on that for Tannehill to communicate, whether it's individually to these guys or to, by extension, through the media, to say, hey, these guys are out here to make plays for me. I'm going to give them the best opportunity to succeed that I can, but I need them to do their part as well. That's something that Kyle Phillips has shown him early in the early going. And Mike Giardi talked about this yesterday, as Lucas correctly pointed out. The Adam Humphries role that really never materialized in this offense in a consequential way. They didn't have a true slot player last year. They had players who played in the slot, but I thought Giardi put this well yesterday on the radio show.
I think that was a steal. I think all the things they wanted from Adam Humphries and never got because, look, he had the concussions. There's nothing, He had the injuries. There's really nothing you can do about that. But, that's the kind of player I think they're getting. I think there are people around the league already buzzing about this kid. And did we miss? Should we have gone and got him earlier? I mean, Vrabes doesn't really throw around compliments, especially for young players, all that easily. And he's already saying, the quarterback trusts him. I think it's huge. I think he adds a dimension to the offense that the offense hasn't had maybe in the entire time that Ryan's been there. So having that sort of security blanket, look, he could be, I wouldn't be shocked if he's a 60, 70 catch guy in his rookie season.
That's Giardi of the NFL Network yesterday talking about Kyle Phillips in this Titans offense. We'll take your phone calls on which rookie you're most excited to watch tonight. I'll give you mine, and you'll hear from Mike Vrabel on the wide receiver rotation. A lot of ground to cover here live from Baltimore. Buck Rising with you on 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back live from Baltimore on this Thursday. Hope you're having a great day so far. Certainly you should be. Game day here in Charm City for the Titans and the Ravens. We're previewing it all for you throughout the course of our show. Certainly Blaine and Mickey going to do the same, and 3HL for an abbreviated 3HL after that before Titans radio coverage takes off for the season at 5:30 p.m. Central Time today. Spicy. So we've been talking about rookies that we're excited to watch, and I know some of you guys have had questions about the roster. So before I give you the rookie that I'm most excited to watch, Lucas opted for Kyle Phillips. Let's go to Buffalo, who calls us today in Donaldson with a Titans roster question.
Let me keep this under a minute. I got 4 points. 1 point early winner of the week goes to Hani for repping Nashville Soccer Club in the Skills Challenge. They also had Zimmerman in a MLS match of some kind a night or two ago. But getting back to the Titans, if they take 3 quarterbacks on their 53-man team, does that make them reduce the number of receivers? And then secondly, I hear talk about, they got demoted to the practice squad. Does that mean that other teams can't scoop up those players that didn't make the 53-man roster? There you go.
Thanks for the call, Buffalo. I appreciate it. So, the MLS All-Star weekend or the game was last night, right?
Yeah, I actually love the way they do it. It's one of the cooler all-star games in the U.S. It's one of the few sports where you can actually play an entertaining all-star game, I think, is soccer, just end-to-end. It's MLS All-Stars against Liga MX All-Star, which is the Mexican league. And Walker Zimmerman and Hani Mukhtar represented Nashville SC.
Okay, so that's point number 1 for Buffalo. For his question about keeping 3 quarterbacks on the roster, and again, there will be 3 stages of cuts over the course of the next 3 weeks as we work our way through preseason competition and the roster construction starts to become more evident for everybody. They will keep 3 quarterbacks in all likelihood. It is going to be very, very difficult, even as I am high on Malik Willis, even as I think Malik Willis has a lot of promise. He is not in any way, shape, or form equipped to be the backup quarterback of an NFL franchise yet. If he has to play this year, you are going to be in a better position with Logan Woodside than you would be with Malik Willis. That's not an indictment of Malik. Just means he's got a long way to go. And that is what they're comfortable with. They're cool with that slow burn for Malik. We've talked about that several times. Where that affects the numbers, it doesn't necessarily have to come at wide receiver. It can come at tight end. It could come in running back. It could come at basically any other position, right? Other than the offensive line, because you have to have a certain number of offensive linemen who can be active for game day when you go from 53 to 46 on Thursdays, Sundays, or Mondays, whenever the team is playing. So the roster math gets complicated by nature of an additional quarterback because it is, I can't think of a team last year who had 3 quarterbacks on the active roster. Off the top of my head, I know the Titans at one point did do it because Mariota was on the active roster but injured. Blaine Gabbert was the starter, and then I think they had a week and a half of Austin Davis just in break glass in case of quarterback emergency. So with all of these things that you're kind of looking at, that's the kind of stuff that you suss out now. Where can we afford to make the math work for us? Because the math has already inherently been affected by the fact that you can't put Malik Willis on the practice squad because Buffalo's right. Put him on the practice squad, any team can scoop him up. And you don't want to do that with a 3rd-round pick at quarterback who you think has promise and can continue your viability beyond Ryan Tannehill's tenure here, whenever that may come. But yes, if you put them on the practice squad, if you'll remember Luke Falk, right? Luke Falk was one of 4 draft picks that they had in the 2018 draft with Harold and Rashawn? I want to say 2018 draft, they had 4 draft picks: Rashawn Evans, Harold Landry, Dane Cruikshank, and Luke Falk. 4 draft picks, only 3 of them made the roster. Luke Falk was scooped off the practice squad by the Dolphins, who were the Titans' week 1 opponent, to try and glean whatever information they could ahead of playing the Titans in the regular season. Now, it didn't end up mattering because it was the longest game in NFL history, like 4 hours worth of lightning delays. Felt like the Titans season was over in week 1. You got Delaney's ankle turned completely the opposite direction. Lawan concussed and Mariota dealing with nerve damage. So whatever information Luke Falk could have given him wasn't necessarily applicable. But for the purposes of practice squad, you got to be judicious with who ends up on your practice squad because any team can claim them in that spot. Now, as far as the players that I'm most excited to watch, and I'd be curious to know the rookies, rather, who I'm most excited to watch, I think I would be doing a disservice, even if I feel a certain way about another player, because I want to see him get live game reps in Chigakonkwo. I think I would be doing a disservice to the audience if I said I wasn't looking forward to watching the league play. I think that's the thing that kind of grabs my attention the most, for obvious reasons. One, because I think I can learn a lot more about Malik than any other player on the field tonight. I'm not, Traylon Burks is going to play. Kyle Phillips is going to play. Chigakonkwo is going to play. Nicholas Petit-Frere is going to play. But they're not playing with their teammates who they would normally be playing with on a Titans starting offensive unit, for example. Ryan Tannehill is not going to be throwing Traylon Burks and Kyle Phillips passes tonight. It is difficult for me. There will be some things from a technical proficiency, how they stem at the top of their routes, how they do all these different things, their footwork, their hand placement, their technique, all of it will be important. But the ability of the wide receiver is inherently affected by the quarterback whom he is playing with. Nobody would dispute this. So in watching the quarterbacks, I'll be able to get a better measure of where the quarterbacks are versus where the wide receivers are by nature of them not playing with their starting quarterback. Because Tannehill will obviously not play. He's not in Baltimore for this game. Malik, what I'm looking for specifically, what I'm excited to watch, and really, I'm more excited for you guys to watch him than I am to personally watch him. I have watched Malik Willis practice now for the better part of 3 months. I have seen the places where Malik Willis is deficient. I have seen the places where Malik Willis can give you an element of your offense that few other players at that position can provide. What I am looking for specifically is how he operates simple things within a play clock. 40 seconds worth of play clock. Can he get to the line of scrimmage? Can he call out the play? Who's setting the protections in that situation? Is he doing it, or is the offensive line doing it? Is the coaching staff doing it for him? Are they running, a certain set of protection on an entire offensive series? Because that's the kind of stuff that they're working on. I don't have the answer to that, but I'm looking for the operational function and viability of Malik, because that is a substantial, if not the majority of playing quarterback, operational proficiency. Then the talent, we know that he can throw the ball far down the field. We know that he can zip it into tight windows if he wants to. We know that he has footwork situations that need to work, but we know that he's been good at identifying and processing what's in front of him. The problem is, mechanically, the footwork is not matching up with the processing ability, and that's the kind of thing that coaching is there to correct. I'm most excited to watch Malik Willis tonight because I'm most excited for you guys to see what this looks like. He may blow you away. We may have packed phone lines all day tomorrow if Malik Willis looks the way that he's looked in practice, which is not great, and that's fine. But because perception is reality, you guys will have a more full sample size of watching him this evening. You're going to make, I think, vast assumptions or drastic assumptions based on something that is, you can learn a little bit, but you cannot, I'm not going to be bent out of shape if Malik Willis throws 3 interceptions, depending on what the interceptions look like, because you have to take each interception, particularly preseason, as a learning opportunity. Okay, what did he see? Why did he throw the interception? Was the interception on him, or was it on the receiver that he's throwing to? Because maybe the receiver had a miscommunication. Why are they pressuring tonight? Baltimore in the preseason, and Wink Martindale left, their former defensive coordinator, who's now the DC for the Giants, who the Titans will face in week 1. But does Mike McDonald, who I believe is now their DC, does Mike McDonald bring pressure on the Titans quarterbacks? I hope that he does, because I want to see how Malik Willis and Logan Woodside, frankly, react to pressure. Because people aren't used to getting blitzed in a preseason game. But Baltimore, obviously, prides itself on its proficiency of disrupting quarterback, and that will be an important part of how they start to ramp their defensive talent up into their own right. Malik Willis is probably the player that I'm most excited for a variety of different reasons to watch this. But listening to Pat O'Hara talk about this last week, you kind of understand what the coaching staff is looking for from him specifically.
Yeah, with young quarterbacks, it's really cool, though, with Malik is he's able to retain information really well. And so his decision-making, which we monitor, has been very good for him. And things that he hasn't had to do before relative to working from the pocket, his feet need to catch up with his mind. And it's getting better. It takes time, Malik has a very strong arm and a really cool skill set. But you can't always rely on that all the time. These windows are tight. The geography is different with the hash marks in the program, which makes a big difference, in my opinion. So the other thing too is, when you're playing quarterback, the NFL provides protection for quarterbacks much more so than outside of the pocket. When you're in the pocket, which is the tackle box, you're protected in the head and neck area. You're protected from being hit low. You're also protected from being body weight landing on top of you. The tackle has 3 ways of protection for a quarterback. Once you leave the tackle box, the only area you're protected is the head and neck area. So you need to operate outside the pocket, but you need to be able to operate from inside the pocket. Operating outside the pocket is not a problem for me.
It sounds.
That's Pat O'Hara, Titans quarterback coach, speaking with media last week about what they're seeing from Malik Willis. And then to take that a step further, going back a little longer, but Mike Vrabel talking about what he's looking for from Malik Willis in the preseason as the head coach, kind of echoing some of the same sentiments, but from his mind's eye, operating in a different space. What is Mike Vrabel going to be looking for tonight? He told us earlier in training.
Well, that's where you're going to have to, where we stay away from the quarterback. Our guys do a great job of practicing against each other, taking care of each other. We work hard, we rush, whatever we're doing, but we're staying away from the quarterback. And until you're out there in this league and taking some hits, which toughness is not a concern. It's just those are going to be important that you're out there and standing in the pocket, stepping up in the pocket, and throwing and passes and finding throwing lanes.
So all very, very basic, incremental, fundamental options or abilities of a quarterback to execute or not. That's all they're grading Malik Willis on tonight. That's all you should grade Malik Willis on tonight. I feel like we've been pretty good about emphasizing that. But, of course, there will be, hot takes flying on the internet as soon as Malik Willis overthrows a wide receiver or, causes pressure on himself because he leaves the pocket too early. Because why wouldn't he? This is something that Malik and Lamar Jackson, for example, have as hallmarks of their game. Because what is the big for people who want to detract from Lamar Jackson as an NFL quarterback, the MVP, and one of the most, and soon to be one of the highest paid players in his position. Lucas, what's the biggest criticism of Lamar Jackson? What do people lob at him as an insult when they talk about Lamar Jackson, the quarterback?
Not a quarterback.
That he's a running back, right? He's great for a running back, but here's the thing. He runs like a running back. Like he has that ability. You get 2 players for 1 in Lamar.
No. I don't like that narrative. Name one running back that Lamar Jackson runs like.
Oh, not anybody right now in football.
Yeah, he runs like Lamar Jackson.
Well, there's not a better second reaction runner in football. But when I'm talking about the mechanics of carrying a ball, like he runs like a player at the running back position. Malik has some of this too. Now, the places where that can be problematic is when you get pressure and your eyes drop and you look to escape the pocket early. Lamar, a lot of the issues that Lamar has are self-inflicted because he leaves the pocket too early. He creates his own pressure. What's the difference between a player who operates like, there's not many players who operate like Lamar, but Lamar, Kyler, whatever version of quarterback with exceptional mobility that you would provide. The difference between them and a quarterback who's come up through the entire process, grade school, high school, all kinds of camps, whatever the case may be, a pocket quarterback. What's the difference between them and a pocket quarterback? Pocket quarterback knows he has to get rid of the football. because he knows the pressure's coming. He knows where to get rid of the football. In the case of Lamar, Kyler, Malik, whatever the case may be, they haven't had to do that. They don't have to know that because they know that they're going to out-athlete you on the field. They're going to get away from you. They're going to run away from you. And Lamar, what makes Lamar crazy is that he still does it at the professional level after having done it in college in ACC play. Lamar still being able to do that is what makes Lamar special because they're a hell of a lot faster in the NFL than they are in college. But the pocket quarterback knows he has to get rid of the football. Lamar is just looking to make a play. Those are the kind of things that I think you're looking to identify in Malik and find ways to coach him up on both things.
And looking to the run too quickly is usually a criticism of those guys as they develop in the league, right? Like that's probably something that needs to be coached out of Malik Willis, not bailing to look to escape the pocket and scramble too quickly.
Don't drop your eyes. Keep your eyes up. Find the place where you can get rid of the football, even if, you don't have to check it down every time even. Just throw it away. Don't worry about trying to do too much because trying to do too much against, who was a Liberty opponent last year? Trying to do too much against NTSU. And who did you say?
Coastal Carolina.
Coastal Carolina, MTSU. Trying to do too much against Coastal Carolina or MTSU is different than trying to do too much against Myles Garrett. Right? The difference is Lamar Jackson can do too much against Myles Garrett and still make Myles Garrett, one of the most athletic things I've ever seen in my life, look less athletic than Lamar. 615-737-1045. That's why I'm excited to watch Malik tonight, just to see where he is in his progression and in live game reps. Those are the kind of things that I think people may lose sight of in this, but we're here to remind you. Don't worry. We got you covered. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We're talking about which Titans you're most excited to watch play in the preseason tonight. Now, speaking of quarterbacks, Lucas expressed a position on the Titans starting quarterback in the preseason that I think that you're going to want to hear. I'm going to tell you what that is coming up next. Live from Baltimore, I'm Buck Rising, 1045 The Zone. Welcome back. Live from downtown Baltimore, Buck Rising here with you until 1 o'clock on this game day. Just complaining to Lucas. Lucas having to deal with all my complaints, rightfully so, after you, I think, single-handedly derailed my travel here yesterday. Complaining to Lucas about the time change. It's 1:45 here. I thought the show was over. I got like turned around. We have to adjust to the time zone difference again while trying to do the radio show on location. Not ideal. I think we only have one Pacific, one West Coast trip this year. I think there's a Chargers game mixed in the middle of this season at some point along the line, but outside of that, it should be pretty smooth sailing. Anyway, we're happy to be here with you. We're happy to have you as a part of the conversation. Jump in if you want. 615-737-1045 is how you do it. So, speaking of Lucas and my complaints about him or my complaints to him, you had a position about Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill that you had expressed to me this morning, and I think people may or may not agree with.
Yeah, and I was kind of trying to work through it because we've talked a lot about all the new faces around Ryan Tannehill. About 73% of his receiving production from last year is gone, and he returns less than 20% of that. Basically, Nick Westbrook-Akina is the only familiar face coming back around Ryan Tannehill, like literally the only guy that he threw to in any type of consistent manner in 2021. So
everybody else plays for the Falcons this year.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. Or the Eagles or the Buccaneers. And I'm trying to think about, is there value in Ryan Tannehill getting preseason snaps when this was such a topic last year, when the Titans came out so flat and got into a hole so quickly in week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals? And we talked about the inconsistencies, lack of continuity throughout training camp, throughout the preseason with guys on and off the field. That hasn't really been the case in training camp for the Titans. Basically, so far, everybody that Ryan Tannehill plans to have around him in the offense this season has been around him in training camp. So I'm wondering if there is value in Ryan Tannehill getting some series with those guys around him in any preseason game. And I was in the studio talking to Ramon Foster about it. And at first, when I was talking to you this morning, I said, yes, I want to see Ryan Tannehill get some preseason snaps. I want to see Ryan Tannehill in a game environment getting snaps with Kyle Phillips and with Chiga Okonkwo and with Robert Woods. And talking to Ramon for a while, Ramon has sort of changed my thinking on it, and I wonder if this would change Titans fans' thinking on it, because he's talking to me like there really isn't much value in that unless you're getting consistent reps. Like if Ryan Tannehill gets out there for a drive and it's a 13-play drive that covers 80 yards for a touchdown, then there's value in that, right? There is value in that. But if it's just a 3-and-out and he gets out there and gets a quick first down and then they go 3-and-out and punt and then you remove him because you don't want to play your quarterback for more than 2 series, then where's the value in that? Where's the risk reward when the Buccaneers are going to be here and the Cardinals are going to be here for the next couple weeks and you're going to be getting those team reps and team drills against somebody else where it's full go. Like you're not touching the quarterback, but it's essentially an 11-on-11 scrimmage. So I think Titans fans will be shouting for Ryan Tannehill to get those preseason reps, kind of like I was because of what happened last season. But I think you got to toe a line of recognizing the risk reward and the lack of value in getting those limited snaps in the preseason when you're going to be able to do that in training camp, in these joint practices, and especially when you're going to have the guys around you, assuming they stay healthy in training camp, unlike you did last year in practices.
You know who else thinks the way that Ramon thinks?
Mike Vrabel.
Mike Vrabel. and I think I'm glad that somebody, but it's different hearing it from me, right, than hearing it from Ramon, who has been through 11 preseasons in his professional NFL career with a veteran quarterback who has seen a lot of football and has had to work with a lot of different pieces and parts year over year, as every NFL starting quarterback does with the amount of turnover that we have in the league. It's different for Ramon to tell you as somebody who's had to work with quarterbacks in those certain segments, as opposed to me who's saying, yeah, Mike Vrabel doesn't think it's important, so he's not going to play. Like that's just you changed your position.
I kind of did. And I'm seeing in the Zone TV chat, we asked people on YouTube, or you can watch us Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch on Zone TV. Nick says with all the new receivers, at least one drive would be good. But how much value do you get with one drive? Like None. It depends on how that drive turns out. But like, what does one drive against a defense that Coach Mack has talked to us about it? Teams are not game planning in the preseason, right? Like, they're not game planning to stop offenses. They just want to see guys in certain situations. So what value does that even really have? And it has kind of changed my thinking on it. And JTB says he's getting his reps with the receivers at camp. No need to put him out there behind a backup offensive line. That's the other thing. If he's out there, you're probably going to want him out there behind 5 starters on the offensive line.
Yeah, because, like, I don't think Lawan is here. I don't think Lawan's going to play at this point. I think that you look at a situation for Ryan Tannehill and you say, yeah, that's what practice is for. That's exactly what practice is for. And as you mentioned, the joint training camp stuff. But here again is the disconnect, right, between fans, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's natural, right, between fans and football people. Football people and the Titans coaches and the Titans front office and everybody who's responsible for putting things, pieces and parts around Ryan Tannehill and acquiring talent and finding the way to make the talent work together, they have seen it every day in practice. They have seen Ryan Tannehill get these reps. You guys haven't seen, for the most part. There have been, I think, 7 or 8 open training camp practices with limited capacity in some form or fashion. But the vast majority of you listening to this who care about the success or failure about the Tennessee Titans, you haven't seen Ryan Tannehill take a snap since he threw an interception on the last play of the Bengals. Like, that's your impression of Ryan Tannehill right now. Now, what I will tell you is the coaching staff feels that he has taken greater strides, he being Ryan Tannehill, that he has taken greater strides to protect the football in training camp than he did a year ago. It is not the end-all be-all. It does not mean that Ryan Tannehill will have an MVP season just because he's throwing considerably less interceptions in training camp.
He's thrown 2.
Well, he has thrown 2, correct. One to Byard, who made a great play on, by the way, miscommunication between Tannehill and Austin Hooper. New, parts and pieces that are working itself out, but not against fifth-string linebackers for the Ravens who are screaming down the sideline to take Austin Hooper's head off if he's on the field, because that guy needs a job. But in practice, where these things are actually determined. And I think that's kind of the thing that catches people up. The point is, he's had the series. He's had full practices. He's had, if we're 10 practices in and they're on the field for about 2 hours a day, you got about, at least what we're seeing, about 20 hours of practice reps already done. Practice series, practice 7-on-7, practice hurry-up drills, all these different things. They've already taken place. Just because you're not seeing them when you watch the television broadcast, and understandably so. It's your first opportunity to see a lot of these things. But keep in mind, for the coaching staff, the reason that they're not playing them is because they're already seeing it on a day-in, day-out basis. 615-737-1045 is how you join. Jason in Nashville is next. Hello, Jason.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Hey, how's it going, bud?
It's going great.
I just wanted to here's my biggest thought. Okay, it doesn't really matter when you got a great quarterback who you have around you, because a great quarterback makes average receivers better. Because you look at that with Brady, you looked at that with Peyton, and I'm not comparing Tannehill to neither one of them, but that's what we're striving for. Go ahead.
Finish your. I apologize for interrupting. Tom Brady got sick of that. Tom Brady said, okay, I'm going to go to Tampa where they're going to give me actual weapons, because he got sick of that after a while. That's not it. You cited 2 examples of guys who did it at a high level for a long time, but also it shouldn't be taken for granted that, Tom Brady said, okay, piss off, Bill. I'm going to go play with Mike Evans and Gronk.
Right. Yeah, and another point to that, like I agree with you, but another point to that, we're really going to see what we got in Tannehill now. Just like Green Bay's really going to see what they got in Aaron Rodgers now that all his receivers are gone, his main receivers, they're going to see what they really got in them. So maybe it takes that for you to really see that, because how much did A.J. Brown really make Tannehill better? It ain't so much of what he did with the catch, but how many yards he gained after he caught the ball. So just like with Rice, I'm just thinking about all of that stuff, as a factor. And also, my question to you, Buck, do you feel like that they're going to do the Titans players the same way they did last year about not allowing them to play in preseason games and setting their starters out? Because I feel like that hurt them in a sense, so that's just my thought. Thanks, man.
So, Lucas, I had trouble. It got a little garbled for me at the end. He asked, what was the question that he asked me at the end about playing preseason versus not playing preseason?
Yeah, so he referenced kind of what we were talking about, attributing the Titans' week 1 struggles to not getting those preseason reps, and if you think that'll be any different this time around.
Do you remember the 2020? I would, and thank you for the call, Jason, 615-737-1045. What happened in 2020? Outside of the office.
In week 1?
Yes.
They beat the Broncos in a late-night Monday Night Football game.
Now, they should have beaten them more, but Stephen Gostkowski had a bit of a meltdown and went haywire. People don't forget. But also, they ended up having the best offense in the history of the franchise that year. You know what else didn't happen before then? Any preseason games at all because of the pandemic. Not a one. They didn't play a single preseason game. Didn't matter.
They barely had a regular training camp. Just they didn't have a normal off season whatsoever.
Zoom meetings was the preparation for the Broncos game, and a little bit of on-field work. Like I understand. Again, I think it's because people see it on television, and they assign to it inherently more value than it comes to. But the best offense that you've had in the history of the Tennessee Titans, maybe I'm sure Houston Oilers. There would be some people that push back. I'm sure Warren Moon has an offense at some point in his career that would rival in Houston Oilers history the Tennessee Titans of 2020. But in the Titans era, they have never had a better offense than they did in 2020. And they had 0 preseason. Barely had any practice, as a matter of fact. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. 2020 team is not the 2022 team, says Jael. Yeah, but A.J. Brown was not terribly available in 2020. In 2022, that has yet to be determined. You have no idea whether the 2022 team is the 2020 team. It doesn't matter. It's a new year. It's a new season. Now we find out together. Larger point, to his credit, we're going to find out about Ryan Tannehill this year, very, very much so. All right. We're going to talk about one Titans player in the final hour of the show as we broadcast live from Baltimore that needs as many reps in the preseason as humanly possible, because I think he has starting potential, but I have yet to see him master his position. We'll talk about that coming up next.
It is 12:04. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica, and it is game day. The Titans play the first preseason game of 2022 at the Baltimore Ravens tonight. Titans countdown starting at 5:30 right here on the Zone before a 6:30 kickoff with Mike Keith, Coach Mack, and the rest of the Titans radio crew. Only one other preseason game going on tonight. It is Giants and Patriots at 6 p.m. Speaking of the Patriots, longtime Pats running back James White announced his retirement earlier today. Down in Tampa Bay, Bucs head coach Todd Bowles told the media Tom Brady will be away from the team for about a week and a half dealing with a personal matter, and he will return after their August 20th preseason game here in Nashville against the Titans, meaning Brady will not be present for joint practices between Bucs and Titans next week at St. Thomas Sports Park. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right, third down here from Baltimore. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. An homage, some might say, to William Bowling, who is in studio with Lucas Panzica right now. I'm not. I'm in Baltimore. I am somewhere in downtown Baltimore, Maryland. In fact, Lucas, I'm going to get my crab fix. I came to Maryland to get crabs. Maybe not in that sense.
Phrasing.
But I'm going to get about $70 worth of Jimmy seafood on my way on its way to the hotel room. I am hyped.
Making that singular makes a world of difference. Saying I came to Baltimore to get crab is one thing. Saying I came to get crabs is a whole other thing.
Well, there's a variety of different crab products that will be in my order. But either way, we're in Baltimore because it's game day. Now that I've made Lucas and Will laugh with a cheesy crabs joke, we're happy to have you as a part of the show. 615-737-1045. That's the number, 615-737-1045. If you want to jump in, we've talked about Malik Willis and Logan Woodside. What our curiosities about their rep distribution is going to be. I have told you that between 20 and 30 players did not travel to this preseason game for a variety of reasons. We have discussed the idea that Ryan Tannehill nor any of the Titans starters really get any value out of these things, and there is absolutely no reason for them to participate. But there is a player who has been a fascination to all of us, you, me, Lucas, Will, everybody in between, for the better part of a year and a half now. And he is a player who has the opportunity to earn a starting job. He is a player who comes in with a very, very impressive pedigree, but we have not seen the dividends of the potential that so many different people have trafficked in around him. He is here in Baltimore. He is going to play tonight. He is Caleb Farley, and I want to see him play substantial reps in every preseason game that the Titans have this season. I want to see him play tonight in Baltimore. I'd like to see him play a half. I want to see him play against Tampa Bay next week, especially since Tom Brady's not going to be in joint training camp practices, reportedly, according to Todd Bowles. He's taking about a week and a half off for some undisclosed reason. So Brady not going to be in attendance here in Nashville when the Bucs and Titans have joint practices at St. Thomas Sports Park. But in the absence of Tom Brady testing Caleb Farley in practice, I want to see him play against Blaine Gabbert in the preseason. I want to see him practice heavily against Kyler Murray. I also want to see him play in that final preseason game against Arizona. Caleb Farley needs reps. He needs time playing the corner position. I've outlined my feeling about the outside corner spot opposite Christian Fulton for you guys several times. I've told you that from my perspective, Roger McCreary would be the favored player as we sit here on August the 11th without a preseason snap having been taken. I would say that I would feel more comfortable with Roger McCreary on the outside as I would Caleb Farley, but that I like Caleb Farley a lot. But what I know of Roger McCreary is he has a bona fide resume of playing outside corner in the NFL. I don't have that for Caleb Farley. And I think this represents a fantastic opportunity for him to rep it out at outside corner in ways that are going to be easier than should you toss him out there in week 2 against the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, the human avatar, out there slinging passes across his face to Stephon Diggs, who will leave him spinning in circles. These are the kind of things that the preseason is for, outside of just earning jobs and valuable reps for guys at the bottom of the roster churn, but for guys like Caleb Farley, who have a lot yet to prove and have such limited experience playing the position that they are slotted into play at the NFL level. This is something I talked to Caleb about on Friday when we had him on the radio show, just generally the competition that they're having in the secondary group that he is a part of. And this was the second year corner out of Virginia Tech talking about his role within the Titans defense.
I think the competition is really good. You know, of course I enjoy going up against and covering our wide receivers and trying to make plays on the ball. But just the overall learning curve of, you know, being helping in the run, you know, just being mentally aware of what's going on with formations and schemes and different kind of concepts and executing our defensive calls. You know, that's been something that I've kind of tried to improve on the most and taking pride in. And so, but of course I love, you know, trying to make plays on the ball and guarding our receivers, but just the overall execution of showing up every day and being a professional football player.
Well, that recognition, it has to allow you to just play more comfortably, to be able to play faster. Is that an accurate assessment?
Absolutely. The more you just know what to do and what your teammates are going to do, the faster it can help you play, and you're able to relax and kind of just be more comfortable and see your keys with your eyes and play fast.
So that's Caleb Farley on the radio show little less than a week ago. He was on with us on Friday. You can hear that full interview. As you can hear all of our training camp interviews in the podcast feed, whether it's Traylon Burks, Caleb Farley, John Robinson, and everybody in between. Many more to come next week, by the way. But Caleb Farley talking about just being able to play faster. He's more comfortable. I do take the coaching staff at their word when Anthony Midget, the DB's coach, talks about how far Caleb has come since he arrived here. Mike Vrabel saying that he was one of the better classroom performers in the offseason, which, yeah, you take it with a grain of salt when you hear coaches talk about that kind of stuff, because they're never going to outright rip these guys publicly if they stink at what it is that they're asking them to do. But it is evident to me that Caleb Farley has progressed significantly since he arrived in Nashville a little over a year ago. But that doesn't mean that he should be treated as somebody who is slotted in automatically for a starting role. And I think we have come to that realization in camp. I think that this presents the opportunity for him to get those valuable reps. The way that we discussed, I would play him for as many preseason snaps as the training staff would allow me to. And he has zero health limitations at this point. So there should be no fear. There should be no reticence about Caleb Farley participating at a high level now in Baltimore against Tampa, and then after that in Arizona, or rather hosting Arizona before they open up at home against the Giants in week 1. 615-737-1045. Which Titans player are you most excited to watch tonight in Baltimore? There's a couple of different storylines that we haven't yet discussed. Some other 2021 draft picks who we think need to knock off the rust. We'll talk about that. We'll take your phone calls on this game day live from Baltimore. I'm Buck Reiser, 104.5 The Zone.
The Book Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Most certainly is. Welcome back live from the Inner Harbor, downtown Baltimore, Maryland, where we're doing the show today. You know why we're doing the show here today, Lucas? I think it's time to bring back the symphony. I think it's time for us to let people know why we are here and doing the show on remote today. Let me hear it.
Football.
That's right.
Oh, it just climbs and climbs and climbs.
Football, kids. We're back. We're better than ever. All right, 3 times per show, once per hour. I'm for the rest of the season. Every show for the rest of the season, we're gonna play that. Somewhere Don Davenport is telling me that I'm number 1 through a radio dial, except with the frankly, the finger that Don is more likely to use in a particular situation. But anyway, football, yes indeed. So, what do we know of the Ravens at this point? I have not seen many reports about who their starting quarterback will be, and what the situation for Baltimore heading into this game is going to look like to discuss who the Titans are going to be defending against and playing against on either side of the ball. Have you looked at the Ravens draft lately, by the way? Like what they did in the draft this year?
I have not.
They had, if I told you that the Ravens famously, they do this every year. Ryan Jensen is a great example of this. Zadarius Smith is a great example of this. Players that the Ravens acquire, that they draft, that they develop, then they don't pay. They let them go to other teams to get super contracts, right? And they find ways to supplement the amount of talent that they're losing with compensatory picks. If I told you that the Ravens had multiple 4th-round draft picks this year, how many would you say that the Ravens got?
Multiple 4th-round draft picks?
How many 4th-round draft picks do you think Baltimore had this year?
I'll say 3.
5. They have 5 4th-round picks this year because they know how to game the system.
They didn't have a 1st-round pick, did they?
The Ravens' 1st-round pick was Tyler Linderbaum.
That's right.
Memory serves.
Out of
he
Iowa.
With injury. Did he go 1st round? Actually, now that I think about it, there might have been a drop there.
He was a 1st-round pick. He was 25.
Yeah, so 1st round Linderbaum, who is currently not available, would not expect to see him tonight, nor Lamar Jackson for obvious reasons, contract situation, and also don't play the quarterback if it's not of value to the quarterback to play. And now they have Baltimore, such a fascinating team in ways that Don just sent us a video. I don't want to look.
It's a picture.
A picture of what, her tiger?
Yeah, no, a picture of her saying we're number 1.
Oh! It looks like that she needs to do some dishes.
I was about to text her that.
Don't play these games with me, Dawn. Don't send me things that I can use against you outside of that. Very, very, that's very, very kind of her to tell me that I'm number 1 on the game day. You're number 1 too, Dawn. Just trust and know. But with the Ravens, it's a good opportunity for Titans defensive players because they're not gonna be running all kinds of crazy stuff that the Ravens normally do. The thing that makes the Ravens so hard to defend, one, Lamar, freakishly athletic, he can make a 48-yard touchdown run at any point. Shout out Titans fans who know this. And it is with a home playoff game against the Titans in 2020, where you did the thing that you needed to do to Lamar. You kept him off the field. You got turnovers. You made the interceptions. The wretched 2020 defense of Tennessee showed up in the playoff game. And just the one 48-yard touchdown run kind of felt like Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game in 19, where it just kind of, they break you over their knee, right? Playmaking ability. Now, it doesn't just come down to playmaking ability. And game planning in the preseason is obviously not the same as game planning in the regular season. But because the Ravens quarterbacks behind Lamar also display mobility, I assume that there will be some unconventional is not the right word, but I assume you will see that some of the looks that the Ravens like to operate in. it is difficult to play Baltimore's offense during the regular season because you have offenses that largely look the same for 6 to 10 to 12 weeks. Then all of a sudden you get Baltimore and you've got tight ends, running backs, all manner of players in the backfield. You don't know who's getting the football. You don't know where it's going, and they can all break it for a 50-yard touchdown run if they want to, right? That's the kind of thing that makes the Ravens difficult to defend. Now, for the Titans defensive players who are going to see snaps, talking about some guys from 2021 class that need to knock off some rust, Rashad Weaver, preseason star of last year, who was lost in, I believe, the second game of the regular season with a broken tibia or fibula. It was a broken leg. We'll just call it that. Rashad Weaver, who flashed against 2s and 3s, but still, he put good tape out there.
In Atlanta.
Atlanta, he played well. I thought in Tampa he did not play as well, but Atlanta was kind of the coming out party. If I remember correctly, that was preseason week 1.
Yeah, it was, because Sam Ficken was still supposed to be the Titans kicker at that point.
That's right. And then all of a sudden you end up with Michael Badgley as the opening day kicker, and then very soon after that, sweet Randall, who is not interested in any nicknames that we would bring to him with the opportunity to discuss. The most consistent of the Titans players so far. But with the Titans defense, there's going to be a significant amount of things that they will defend anyway that will be good. It will be a good learning lesson for Ola Adeni, for Rashad Weaver, I don't know who's playing inside linebacker tonight. Chance Campbell for sure.
Oh, a ton of snaps for Chance Campbell.
And then maybe some of the UDFA guys, because I would not expect Captain Caveman, the human bicep. I'm blanking on his name. I've been calling him the nickname for so long. Dylan Cole, who was injured in practice a couple of days